Commander Jake Sullivan looked out at the stars from his position on the bridge of the U.E.'s Guardian. The view never got old, even after 12 years of service. Space looked peaceful from here, like a giant black canvas with tiny white dots scattered across it. But Jake knew better than most that this peace was fragile, bought with careful planning and smart choices. Earth had been lucky for 15 years now. While two massive alien empires fought each other across the galaxy, humanity had managed to stay out of their way. The Zephyrian Empire and the Keth Collective had been at war for over 30 years, destroying entire star systems in their endless conflict. Billions had died, whole civilizations had been wiped out, and still they kept fighting. Jake remembered the day Admiral Lisa Martinez had made the decision that saved Earth. He had been a young lieutenant then, fresh out of the academy, and eager to prove himself. The United Earth Council had been split down the middle. Half wanted to join the Zephyrians, thinking their advanced technology would protect Earth. The other half favored the Keth Collective, believing their democratic ideals matched human values. Better, Admiral Martinez had stood before the council and said something that changed everything. "We are not ready for this war. Neither side will welcome us as equals. They will use us as cannon fodder and discard us when we are no longer useful. Our only chance of survival is to remain invisible until we are strong enough to stand on our own." The decision had not been popular. Many people called it cowardly. Some said humanity should stand up for what was right and help end the suffering. But Martinez had been firm. Earth would stay neutral, no matter what happened out there in the dark. The strategy had worked perfectly so far. Earth's few colonies were hidden in remote systems, their locations known only to trusted ship captains. Human technology was carefully concealed behind fake alien designs. When human traders needed to do business in galactic markets, they used false identities and modified ships that looked like they belonged to other species, not to the rest of the galaxy. Humans were just another primitive race, barely capable of interstellar travel. Most aliens had never even heard of Earth. Those who had dismissed humans as insignificant, newcomers who would probably destroy themselves within a few decades, just like countless other young species had done before them. Jake turned his attention to the status reports flowing across his command console. The Guardian was one of 6 ships patrolling the outer edges of the solar system, watching for any signs that the Galactic War might be heading toward Earth. It was boring work most of the time, but absolutely vital. Early warning was the only thing standing between Earth and disaster. Lieutenant Amy Chun, his communications officer, looked up from her station with a slight frown. "Commander, I'm picking up some unusual signals from the deep space monitoring network. Captain Davis is requesting an immediate conference with Admiral Martinez." Jake felt a cold knot form in his stomach. Captain Ryan Davis commanded the most remote monitoring station in human space, positioned almost a full light year from Earth. If he was calling for an emergency conference, something big was happening. "Put him through on the secure channel," Jake ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing Captain Davis sitting in his cramped command center. The man looked tired and worried, which was unusual for someone known for his calm demeanor. Under pressure. Behind him, Jake could see other officers working frantically at their stations. "Admiral Martinez, Commander Sullivan," Davis began without preamble. "We have a problem. A big one. 3 hours ago, our long-range sensors detected multiple hyperspace signatures heading directly toward our position. The energy patterns don't match anything in our database." Admiral Martinez leaned forward in her chair. She was attending the conference from Earth Defense Command Headquarters, her weathered face showing the strain of 15 years of constant vigilance. "How many ships are we talking about, Captain?" Davis swallowed hard before answering. "Over 300 confirmed. Contacts, Admiral, possibly more. The fleet is massive, bigger than anything the Zephyrians or Keth have ever assembled. And ma'am, they're not following any known hyperspace routes. Whoever they are, they know exactly where they're going. The silence that followed was deafening. Jake felt his hands grip the armrests of his command chair. 300 ships was more than Earth's entire defensive fleet. If these were enemies, humanity was in serious trouble. "Have you been able to identify their origin point?" Martinez asked. "Negative, Admiral." The signatures appeared simultaneously across multiple sensor grids, suggesting they came from different directions, but coordinated their arrival perfectly. This level of tactical precision is beyond anything we've seen from either side in the Galactic War. Jake studied the sensor data flowing across his secondary screens. The numbers were terrifying. Each contact showed energy readings that suggested ships much larger than anything in Earth's fleet. Worse, their formation patterns indicated military discipline and advanced tactical planning. "Admiral," Jake spoke up, "if these ships maintain their current course and speed, they'll reach the outer solar system in approximately 18 hours. Martinez nodded grimly. "Captain Davis, I want continuous updates every 15 minutes. Commander Sullivan, recall all patrol vessels to defensive positions around Earth immediately." This is not a drill. As the conference ended, Jake began issuing orders to his crew. The Guardian's engines roared to life as they changed course toward Earth at maximum speed. Around them, the other patrol ships were doing the same, racing back. To protect their home world, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change forever. For 15 years, Earth had lived in the shadows, avoiding the attention of the galactic superpowers. They had built their strength in secret, developed new technologies, and prepared for the day when neutrality might no longer be possible. But deep down, everyone had hoped that day would never come. They had hoped the Zephyrians and Kef would exhaust themselves fighting each other, leaving humanity free to emerge when the galaxy was ready for a new power. They had hoped their careful isolation would be enough as the Guardian raced through space toward Earth. Jake realized those hopes might have been nothing more than wishful thinking. The galaxy was a dangerous place, full of powers and forces that humanity was only beginning to understand. And now, something new was coming, something that had found Earth despite all their precautions. The quiet years were ending, and Jake feared what would take their place. The alien fleet dropped out of hyperspace, exactly where Captain Davis had predicted they would. Jake watched from the Guardian's bridge as hundreds of massive ships materialized on his sensors, their hulls gleaming with an eerie blue light that seemed to pulse with life. These vessels were unlike anything in the human database, sleek and angular with designs that hurt to look at for too long. Admiral Martinez stood in the Earth Defense Command Center, surrounded by screens showing the approaching fleet from every angle. Her staff worked frantically at their stations, trying to gather any useful information about these uninvited guests. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. "Admiral," Lieutenant Colonel Amy Johnson called out from her position. "At the communications array, we're receiving a transmission from the lead vessel. It's being broadcast on all frequencies simultaneously." "Put it through," Martinez ordered, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. The main screen filled with static for a moment, then cleared to show something that made everyone in the command center take a step back. The being on the screen was tall and crystalline, its body appearing to be made of living glass that shifted and moved like liquid. Its voice came through perfectly clear, speaking in flawless English. "We are the hegemony. We have come to claim this system and its resources. The species known as humans will be relocated to suitable labor worlds. Resistance will result in termination. You have 1 standard hour to begin evacuation procedures." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Jake felt his blood turn to ice. This was not a diplomatic contact or a request for negotiation. This was a simple statement of fact, delivered with the casual certainty of someone announcing the weather. Amy Johnson was already working at her computer, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she analyzed the transmission. As Earth's top expert in alien languages and communication, she had spent years studying every scrap of information humanity had gathered about galactic civilizations. "Admiral," Amy said, her voice tight with fear, "I've never seen this species in any of our files, but there's something else. The linguistic patterns in their transmission suggest they have detailed knowledge of human language and culture. They didn't use a universal translator. They spoke to us in perfect English." Martinez felt a chill run down her spine. If these aliens knew enough about humans to speak their language fluently, then Earth's carefully maintained secrecy had already been compromised. But how? And for how long? Captain Tony Mitchell was preparing his ship, the diplomatic vessel Horizon, for what might be the most important mission in human history. His orders were simple but nearly impossible. Buy time, gather information, and find some way to avoid the complete destruction of human civilization. Tony had been Earth's primary diplomat for contact with other species, though such contacts had been rare and carefully managed over the years. He was good at reading people, at finding common ground even in difficult situations. But as he looked at the massive alien fleet on his screens, he wondered if his skills would be enough for this challenge. The Horizon launched from Earth's primary spaceport with a small escort of fighters. The ship was unarmed, painted white with clear diplomatic markings in multiple languages. Tony had insisted on approaching the aliens alone, hoping that a peaceful gesture might open the door to negotiation. As the Horizon approached the alien flagship, Tony could see the massive vessel up close for the first time. It was enormous, easily 10 times the size of Earth's largest warship. The hull seemed to be alive, covered in patterns that moved and shifted like breathing. Strange lights pulsed along its length in rhythms that suggested some kind of communication. System. Horizon to alien vessel. Tony broadcast on the standard diplomatic frequency. "This is Captain Tony Mitchell, representing the United Earth government. I request permission to come aboard for negotiations." The response came immediately, but not in the way Tony had expected. A beam of energy reached out from the flagship and surrounded the Horizon, drawing it into a massive docking bay. Tony felt his ship's controls become unresponsive as the alien technology took complete control. Minutes later, Tony found himself standing in what appeared to be a command center, made entirely of the same crystalline material as the being in the transmission. The walls seemed to pulse with their own inner light, and strange symbols moved across their surfaces in patterns that made his eyes water, the crystalline being materialized in front of him, its form shifting and changing as it moved. When it spoke, Tony could hear the words both aloud and somehow directly in his mind, as if the creature was communicating on multiple levels at once. "I am Arbiter Prime of the Hegemony Fleet. You are the representative of the human species." Tony replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "I've come to discuss the terms of your arrival in our system." Arbiter Prime's form flickered, and Tony sensed what might have been amusement. "There are no terms to discuss. Your species has been evaluated according to hegemony standards. You possess adequate physical capabilities for labor, but lack the technological advancement necessary for preservation as equals. You will serve." Tony felt his diplomatic training kick in despite his fear. "Surely there must be some arrangement we can make. Humans are adaptable, creative, and capable of learning. We could be valuable allies rather than just workers." "Your creativity is precisely why you cannot be allowed to remain independent," Arbiter Prime responded. "Creative species are unpredictable. Unpredictable species cause problems. Problems reduce efficiency. The hegemony values efficiency above all else. As the conversation continued, Tony began to understand the true horror of what humanity was facing. The hegemony was not just another alien empire seeking territory or resources. They were something far worse, a species that viewed all other life as either useful tools or obstacles to be removed. The Zephyrian Empire and Keth Collective. Tony said, grasping at straws, "Surely they will object to your actions here." Arbiter Prime's form shifted in what Tony now recognized as the alien equivalent of laughter. The Zephyrians and Keth had been fighting each other for decades, weakening themselves through constant warfare. Their conflict serves our purposes perfectly. When they have finished destroying each other, we will claim their territories as well. The truth hit Tony like a physical blow. The galactic war that had raged for 30 years, the conflict that had killed billions and destroyed entire civilizations, had been orchestrated by the hegemony. They had been playing both sides against each other, waiting for the perfect moment to sweep in and claim everything. "You started their war," Tony whispered. "We encouraged their existing tensions and provided them with reasons to hate each other more deeply. It was efficient. Now they are too weak to resist us, and your species will soon join them in service to the hegemony." Tony realized that negotiation was impossible. The hegemony saw humans not as people, but as resources to be harvested. There was no common ground to find, no appeal to reason or morality that would work. "Like hell we will," Tony said, his voice filled with quiet determination. The last thing he saw was Arbiter Prime's crystalline form brightening with deadly energy before the horizon exploded in a brilliant flash that lit up the solar system. The explosion of the horizon lit up space like a dying star, and Admiral Martinez knew that Earth's 15 years of peace had just ended in the worst possible way. She stood in the command center, watching the debris scatter across her screens, feeling the weight of 6 billion lives pressing down on her shoulders. "All units, this is Admiral Martinez," she spoke into her communications array, her voice carrying to every ship and station in the solar system. "The hegemony has just committed an act of war against Earth. Operation Deep Strike is now active. Repeat, Operation Deep Strike is now active." Those words triggered something that the hegemony had never expected to find in what they thought was a primitive system. Hidden throughout the asteroid belt and outer planets, weapons platforms that had been disguised as mining stations and research facilities suddenly came to life. Colonel Ben Parker sat in the control center for Deep Strike Station Alpha, buried deep inside an asteroid that the aliens had dismissed as worthless rock. For 12 years, he had overseen the construction of the most advanced weapons network in known space. Now it was time to see if all that work had been worth it. "Bring all platforms online," Ben ordered his team. "Target the hegemony fleet and prepare to fire on my command." Across the solar system, similar scenes were playing out at dozens of hidden locations. What had appeared to be empty space suddenly bristled with weapons platforms, defensive shields, and sensor arrays that had been invisible moments before. Earth had not spent 15 years hiding in fear. They had spent it preparing for exactly this moment. The hegemony fleet was advancing toward Earth in perfect formation, their ships moving with the mechanical precision that Arbiter Prime valued so highly. Their sensors showed them a primitive world defended by a handful of outdated vessels. Victory seemed inevitable, an efficient dot. Then the first wave of Earth's defense grid opened fire. Beams of pure energy lanced out from seemingly empty space, striking hegemony ships with devastating accuracy. The aliens' advanced shields, designed to counter known galactic weapons, flickered and failed under the assault from weapons they had never encountered before. Dr. Nicole Hayes watched the battle from her laboratory, deep under Earth's surface, a smile playing across her lips for the first time in months. As head of the Terran Research Initiative, She had spent 15 years reverse engineering every piece of alien technology that humanity could get their hands on. Crashed Zephyrian fighters, damaged Keth equipment, even fragments recovered from. Ancient battlefields had all found their way to her lab. The weapons now firing at the hegemony were not purely human designs. They were hybrid creations that combined human engineering with the best technology from across the galaxy. Energy weapons that could adapt their frequency to penetrate any known shield. Targeting systems that learned from each shot and became more accurate with every engagement. Defensive systems that could predict and counter enemy tactics in real time. Nicole, her assistant Dr. Peter Walsh, called out from his station. The adaptive targeting system is working perfectly. Our hit rate is already up to 93% and climbing. Nicole nodded, but her expression remained serious. The defense grid was performing beyond her wildest expectations, but she knew it would not be enough. Earth's weapons were more advanced than anything the hegemony had faced, but the aliens still had overwhelming numbers. For every ship they destroyed, 10 more took its place. Major Steve Cooper led the first wave of human fighters into battle, piloting one of the new Phoenix-class interceptors that Dr. Hayes had designed. The ship looked primitive compared to the sleek hegemony vessels, but appearances were deceiving. Every system had been built with one goal in mind, to give human pilots the tools they needed to fight like humans. Phoenix Squadron, this is Cooper. He spoke into his comm system as his fighters screamed through space toward the enemy fleet. Remember your training. These aliens think they know how we fight because they have computers that can predict every possible tactic. Show them what human creativity looks like. Steve's fighter dove toward a hegemony cruiser at an angle that should have been suicide. The alien ship's defensive systems calculated the most likely attack patterns and positioned their weapons accordingly. But Steve was not following any tactical manual. At the last second, he rolled his ship upside down and fired his weapons at a section of the enemy hull that all logic sighed was the wrong target. The shots punched through a weak point in the cruisers. Armor that human analysis had identified, but hegemony computers had dismissed as irrelevant. The ship's power systems overloaded, and the massive vessel went dark, drifting helplessly through space. Behind Steve, the rest of Phoenix Squadron followed their own impossible attack patterns. Human pilots did not fight like computers. They fought like humans, making decisions based on instinct, creativity, and sometimes pure desperation. The hegemony's tactical computers, programmed to counter logical military strategies, could not process the chaos of human combat doctrine. Captain Helen Morris commanded the orbital defense platform Aegis 7, one of the massive weapons stations that protected Earth's immediate vicinity. Her platform was taking heavy fire from 3 hegemony destroyers, and her shields were failing rapidly. According to all military logic, she should fall back and preserve her forces for the next phase of the battle. Helen had other ideas. All hands, this is the captain, she announced over the platform's internal communications. Prepare for ramming speed. We are going to show these aliens what humans do when we are backed into a corner. Her crew did not hesitate. They had trained for this possibility, knowing that sometimes the most effective weapon was the willingness to sacrifice everything for victory. Aegis 7's engines roared to life, pushing the massive platform directly toward the lead hegemony destroyer. The aliens tried to change course, but Helen had calculated their movement perfectly. Aegis 7 struck the destroyer amidships, and both vessels disappeared in an explosion that could be seen from Earth's surface. The blast was so powerful that it crippled the 2 remaining destroyers and cleared a hole in the hegemony's attack formation. Across the solar system, similar acts of desperate courage were playing out. Human defenders who should have retreated instead attacked. Ships that should have been destroyed kept fighting long after their weapon systems failed. Soldiers who should have surrendered found new ways to hurt the enemy, even as their positions were overrun. The hegemony had expected to face another conquered species begging for mercy. Instead, they found themselves fighting people who viewed defeat as merely another tactical option. Every human loss cost the aliens far more than it should have. Every victory came at a price that their efficiency calculations had never accounted for. But numbers were still numbers, and the hegemony fleet was vast. Despite their unexpected losses, they were still advancing toward Earth. Admiral Martinez knew that the defense grid had bought them time, but not victory. Earth needed something more than weapons and courage to survive this war. They needed allies, and they needed them fast. Admiral Martinez stood in the Earth Defense Command Center watching her forces fight with everything they had against impossible odds. The defense grid was holding for now, but casualty reports kept flowing in from across the solar system. Earth needed help, and they needed it before the hegemony could bring their full strength to bear. "Get me Commander Greg Turner," she ordered her communications officer. Turner appeared on the main screen moments later, his face streaked with sweat and debris from the battle raging around his ship. The Ranger was one of Earth's fastest vessels, built specifically for deep space reconnaissance and contact missions. If anyone could reach the warring alien empires in time, it would be Greg. "Commander, I have a mission for you that could save Earth or get you killed in the process," Martinez said without preamble. "I need you to break through the hegemony lines and make contact with both the Zephyrian Empire and the Keth Collective. Tell them what we have learned about the hegemony's manipulation of their war." Greg nodded grimly. He had been expecting this order since the battle began. "What makes you think they will listen to us, Admiral? We are nobody to them, just another primitive species." "Because we have something they need," Martinez replied. "We have proof that their 30-year war has been orchestrated by the hegemony from the beginning, and we have a way to fight back." The Ranger launched from its hidden base on the far side of Earth's moon, using the planet's gravity to slingshot toward the edge of the solar system at maximum speed. Greg's ship was small and fast, designed to avoid detection rather than fight pitched battles. His only hope was to slip past the hegemony fleet while they were focused on Earth's defenses. Captain Maria Lopez had been watching the hegemony communications from her position aboard the stealth ship Phantom for the past 6 hours. Her vessel was invisible to most sensors, wrapped in technology that bent light and energy around its hull like water flowing around a stone. What she had discovered in those intercepted transmissions would change the entire war. "Admiral," Maria transmitted on the secure channel, "I have breaking news about the hegemony command structure. Their entire fleet operates through a central artificial intelligence network that coordinates all tactical decisions in real time. Every ship, every weapon, every movement is controlled by a single massive computer system aboard their flagship." Martinez felt her pulse quicken. A centralized command system meant a single point of failure. If Earth could somehow disrupt that network, the entire hegemony fleet would be thrown into chaos. "Can we attack this computer directly?" Martinez asked. "Not with conventional weapons," Maria replied. "But Dr. Ross thinks he might have another option." Dr. Kevin Ross was Earth's top computer specialist, a man who understood digital systems better than most people understood their own thoughts. He had been studying fragments of hegemony code that Maria's ship had intercepted, looking for any weakness that human technology could exploit. "Admiral, the hegemony AI is impressive, but it has one critical flaw," Kevin explained over the comlink. "It prioritizes efficiency above everything else. Every decision is calculated to produce the maximum result with minimum resource expenditure. That predictability is what makes it vulnerable." Kevin had been working on a computer virus, unlike anything ever created. Instead of trying to destroy the hegemony system, His program would introduce random variables into their tactical calculations. Small changes that would make their own efficiency work against them. The virus will not shut down their ships, Kevin continued, but it will make them unpredictable to themselves. Their weapons will fire at slightly wrong angles. Their formations will drift out of position. Their supply lines will develop gaps. The changes will be small at first, but they will compound over time until their entire fleet is operating in chaos. While Kevin worked on his digital weapon, Commander Turner was racing through space toward the Zephyrian Empire's nearest fleet. The aliens had been fighting the Keth Collective for so long that both sides maintained massive military forces along their shared border, ready to strike at a moment's notice. Greg's ship dropped out of hyperspace in the middle of a Zephyrian patrol, immediately triggering every alarm on their vessels. The aliens powered up their weapons and demanded identification, probably assuming he was a Keth spy trying to infiltrate their territory. "This is Commander Greg Turner of the Terran Federation," he broadcast on all frequencies. "I have urgent information about the hegemony that affects both your empire and the Keth Collective. The war you have been fighting for 30 years is not what you think it is." The Zephyrian commander, a reptilian being named General Vex, appeared on Greg's screen with obvious suspicion. The Zephyrians had been fighting for so long that they trusted no one and questioned everything. "Humans," Vex hissed through his translator. "Your species has avoided this war for decades, while others died. Why should we listen to you now?" "Because the hegemony has been playing both sides against each other since the beginning," Greg replied urgently. "They have been feeding information to your enemies and sabotaging peace negotiations. They wanted you and the Keth to destroy each other so they could claim both your territories without a fight." Vex's eyes narrowed as he processed this information. The Zephyrians were proud warriors, but they were not fools. If what the humans said was true, then they had been fighting the wrong enemy for 3 decades. "You have proof of these claims?" Vex demanded. Greg transmitted the communication intercepts that Captain Lopez had gathered, along with tactical analyses showing how hegemony forces had been secretly supporting both sides of the conflict at different times. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. Meanwhile, a similar conversation was taking place on the other side of the border as another human ship made contact with the Keth Collective. The democratic aliens were more willing to listen to reason, but they also had good cause to distrust anyone offering easy answers to their long struggle. Lieutenant Commander Carl Danis found himself commanding the first joint operation between humans and aliens in Earth's history. His mixed fleet of human, Zephyrian, and Keth ships was moving toward a hegemony supply base that intelligence had identified as a critical target. The operation was unlike anything any of them had ever attempted. Human tactics emphasized flexibility and surprise. Zephyrian strategy focused on overwhelming firepower and direct assault. Keth doctrine favored careful planning and coordinated strikes. Somehow, they had to make all 3 approaches work together. "All units, this is Davis," Carl transmitted to the mixed fleet. "Remember, we are not trying to destroy the base completely. Our goal is to capture their communication equipment and gather intelligence about their fleet movements. Humans will provide diversionary attacks. Zephyrians will handle the main assault. Keth forces will secure the technical objectives." The attack succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. The hegemony defenders had been programmed to counter known Zephyrian and Keth tactics, but they had no experience fighting against human unpredictability. While alien forces kept the enemy busy with conventional attacks, human ships slipped through their defenses and struck at targets that should have been impossible to reach. More importantly, the 3 species learned that they could work together, despite their differences. Humans brought creativity and adaptability. Zephyrians contributed raw power and warrior determination. The Keth provided technical expertise and strategic planning. Together, they were stronger than any of them could be alone. Back at Earth, the battle was reaching its critical phase. The hegemony fleet was closing in on the planet itself, and even Earth's advanced defenses could not hold them back much longer. But Admiral Martinez was no longer fighting alone. Across the galaxy, a new alliance was forming, and humanity had become the catalyst that would either save the galaxy or see it fall to the hegemony's cold efficiency. The final battle for Earth's survival began not with weapons or warships, but with lines of computer code flowing through subspace networks faster than light itself. Dr. Kevin Ross sat in his underground laboratory, his fingers dancing across holographic keyboards as he prepared to launch the most important program in human history. "Admiral, the virus is ready for deployment," Kevin reported to Martinez through the secure communication link. "But I need a direct connection to the hegemony's central AI system. Someone has to get close enough to their flagship to upload the program directly into their network." Admiral Martinez looked at the tactical display showing the massive hegemony command ship at the center of their fleet formation. The vessel was easily 50 times larger than Earth's biggest warship, surrounded by defensive screens that could vaporize any attacking force before they came within weapons range. "I'll take the mission," Captain Julia Stevens volunteered from her position aboard the stealth corvette Shadow. Julia had been flying reconnaissance missions against the hegemony since the battle began, slipping through their defenses like a ghost in the night. "Julia, that ship is a fortress," Martinez warned. "Even if you can get inside their defensive perimeter, you would need to physically dock with their hull to establish a direct connection. The chances of survival are essentially zero." Julia smiled grimly. "Admiral, with respect, the chances of Earth's survival are also essentially zero if we do not try this. Besides, someone once told me that humans specialize in doing impossible things." The Shadow launched from its hidden position behind one of Jupiter's moons, using the planet's massive electromagnetic field to mask its approach. Julia's ship was the most advanced stealth vessel in Earth's fleet, incorporating technology borrowed from a dozen different alien civilizations and improved by human engineering. As the Shadow raced toward the hegemony flagship, the largest space battle in Galactic history was beginning to unfold around Earth itself. Admiral Martinez commanded a combined fleet of human, Zephyrian, and Keth vessels that had never fought together before. Somehow, they had to coordinate their attack perfectly while Julia attempted her impossible mission. "All ships, this is Admiral Martinez," she broadcast to the Allied fleet. "Today we fight not just for Earth, but for the freedom of every species in the galaxy. The hegemony believes that efficiency is more important than life itself. Show them what life can accomplish when it refuses to give up." Commander Jake Sullivan led the first wave of the assault from the bridge of the Guardian. Around him, human ships flew alongside Zephyrian cruisers and Keth, destroyers in formations that should have been chaotic, but somehow worked perfectly. Each species brought their own strengths to the battle, and together they created something greater than the sum of their parts. The hegemony fleet responded with mechanical precision, their ships moving in perfect formation as their central AI calculated the most efficient way to destroy the attacking forces. But for the first time in their history, efficiency was not enough. The Allied fleet fought with the desperate creativity of species that had everything to lose. Captain Helen Morris, who had survived the destruction of Aegis 7 by ejecting in an escape pod, now commanded a salvaged Keth destroyer. Her mixed crew of humans and aliens had never worked together before, but they fought like they had been training for years. "Target their shield generators," Helen ordered her gunner, a Zephyrian warrior named Grix, who had lost his own ship in an earlier battle. "Their defensive screens are too strong for our weapons, but maybe we can overload them if we hit the right spots." Grix's reptilian features showed what might have been a smile. Human tactics are strange, but effective. I approve. Meanwhile, Julia's stealth ship had penetrated the outer defenses of the hegemony flagship and was approaching the massive vessel's hull. The command ship was so large that it had its own gravitational field, and Julia had to fight against the pull as she maneuvered toward what her sensors indicated was a maintenance port. Kevin, I am in position, Julia transmitted back to Earth. Beginning docking procedures now. The Shadow's specialized equipment cut through the hegemony hull like it was made of paper, creating an airtight seal that would allow Julia to access the enemy ship's internal systems. She worked quickly, knowing that her presence would be detected within minutes. Dr. Kevin Ross monitored the upload from his laboratory, watching as his virus spread through the hegemony network like wildfire. The program was elegant in its simplicity, introducing tiny random errors into the AI's calculations. A targeting system would fire 1 degree off target. A navigation computer would plot a course that was slightly wrong. A shield generator would flicker for just a microsecond. Individually, the errors were too small to notice. But when multiplied across hundreds of ships and thousands of systems, they created chaos. The effect became visible almost immediately. Hegemony ships began drifting out of formation as their navigation systems disagreed with each other. Weapons fired at empty space as targeting computers lost track of their intended victims. Shield systems cycled randomly, leaving gaps in their defenses at the worst possible moments. Arbiter Prime detected the intrusion within minutes of the virus upload, but by then it was too late. The infection had spread to every ship in the fleet, and the AI's attempts to purge the system only made the chaos worse. Impossible, the crystalline being said to itself as it watched its perfect fleet dissolve into disorder. No primitive species could develop such sophisticated attack software. But Julia Stevens was already gone, her stealth ship vanishing back into space before the hegemony could respond. The virus continued to spread and evolve, adapting to every countermeasure the AI attempted to deploy. The battle turned decisively in favor of the Allied fleet. Hegemony ships that had been unstoppable now fired on each other by mistake. Their formations collapsed as navigation systems sent them in random directions. Supply ships delivered ammunition to the wrong vessels, while medical frigates tried to dock with weapons. Platforms. Admiral Martinez watched in amazement as the most efficient military force in galactic history self-destructed before her eyes. But she knew the victory was not complete. The hegemony still had vast fleets scattered across the galaxy, and they would eventually find ways to counter the virus. All commanders, she broadcast to the Allied fleet, this is just the beginning. We have proven that the hegemony can be defeated, but they will adapt and return stronger than before. We must use this victory to build something that will last. In the weeks that followed, representatives from dozens of species arrived at Earth to witness the formation of the Galactic Defense Union. The Zephyrian Empire and Keth Collective formally ended their 30-year war, signing a peace treaty. In the same room where Admiral Martinez had first decided to keep Earth neutral, but humanity was no longer neutral. They had become the catalyst for the greatest alliance in galactic history, bringing together species that had been enemies for generations. Earth's technology was shared freely with their new allies, while alien knowledge flowed back to human scientists and engineers. Commander Jake Sullivan stood once again on the bridge of a ship called Guardian, but this vessel was unlike anything Earth had ever built before. It incorporated the best technology from a dozen civilizations, crewed by beings from across the galaxy, who had learned to work together despite their differences. The hegemony still existed somewhere in the dark spaces, between stars, plotting their return and adapting to the new realities of galactic politics. But they were no longer the puppet masters of cosmic conflict. They had learned what every would-be conqueror eventually discovers, that the most dangerous enemy is not the one with the biggest fleet or the most advanced technology. It is the one that refuses to be conquered and inspires others to do the same.